Caught in the crossfire. It's caught in the crossfire.
What is up, guys? It is me, FizzyPro here, back at it again with another Yu-Gi-Oh commentary for y'all. In today's video, I'm going to be doing a deck profile on my Amorphages. Now, I've seen a lot of deck profiles out there, and a lot of people just don't know what the fuck they're doing with this deck. They got the ratios of the Amorphages all wrong. Like, I honestly think that this deck is one of the hardest ones to master and try and get it exactly right. And I've been testing this deck ever since it first came out. I've been obsessed with them. I've done so much tinkering, and this is my ultimate Amorphage deck profile. Months of testing. So yeah, I'm just gonna bring this out, give it to you guys. Yeah, so let's just jump into it. I don't have any replays of this deck, because when I play on YGOPro, actually people rage quit on me way too much for me to get any substantial replays for you guys. So we're just gonna go into the deck profile for this one. Yeah, so let's just jump into it. Alright, obviously you got the one sloth, pretty standard for all Amorphage decks. It's basically the mistake of the deck. Now, it can work against you because it stops you also from adding cards to your hand, so it stops stuff like Infection and so forth, and a bunch of other searchers in the deck. However, what you can do is you use it on your opponent for a turn, and then you let it destroy itself on your turn, so that way you don't have to deal with it. And then you can get the search off of Infestation the same. So that is that. You only run one again because it can brick, and it's a really good card. However, it can brick and it can hurt you, so you only run one of those. Then you run the two Irritums. Basically, it is a Macrocosmos for the deck. There's a reason why D-Fissure and Macrocosmos are limited. It's because they are great cards. Now, you do run two, you don't run the third, because again, you don't want something that you can't pendulum summon in your hand too much. It clogs up the hands and so forth, and it's a big thing. However, it's too good not to run in two, so you gotta run the two. Alright, now we go on to Amorphage Leckery. I don't know how to pronounce it. Leckery. Basically, this shuts out your opponent from all their spell cards. Now, it does kind of suck because it's a level 2, meaning you can't pendulum summon it. And also, it is, yeah, it's a level 2, so that kind of sucks. However, it is too good not to run 3 of. It is a necessity in the deck. You want to have 3 of these just to shut your opponent out of your spells. It's like if you know, there's a lot of decks that just auto lose to this card. Spells are a very important part of the game, very powerful part of the game, and a floodgate against them is insanely powerful. So if you get this thing set up with some tributes fodder going, it can really fuck your opponent up. Alright, then we run the 3 Gluttony. Same thing as Leckery. It negates all your monsters' effects. You have to run 3. There's a reason why Skill Drain is limited. It's a broken card. It shuts down so many decks, and it's even better because it negates the activation of effects. So it's not like something like Barbaros, where it's a continuous effect. So like, you know how that works. But now the thing that does suck with this, again, it's a level 2, so you can't pendulum summon it, and it has 0 attack. However, you will almost always be using this in your scales, not to pendulum summon it. So, and it's such a good effect, such a good floodgate, you have to run 3 of. Now, we do run the 2 Envy. I see a lot of builds with 3 that is really cloggy in my opinion, because yes, while it is a level 4, so you can pendulum summon it, it has 0 attack, and that really kind of ruins it for me. It's a nice thing to have in your scales. However, you do have quite a few level 5 or 5 pendulum scales, so you don't run the 3rd. It's just not good enough to run a 3rd one of, and the 0 attack is really a deal breaker there. Now, we do run the 2 Greeds. Now, it's a 3 pendulum scale. It's level 4, and while it does have 0 attack, it's also got a good effect. A little bit better, in my opinion, than Envy. So now the thing with this is you can't always side these out if your opponent does not run traps, which is another thing which I love about Amorphages, is that basically you can tailor your deck exactly to counter your opponent's deck in game 2 and 3, because really, if they don't run traps, you can side this out. You know, so let's say you're playing a Burning Abyss deck. You can side, you know, they don't play traps or something. You can side these out, sign in the chain disappearances, and bam, you're good to go. You got an exactly tailored deck to defeat them. So that's pretty cool. But you do run the 2 of these. 3 is cloggy, but you do need 2 because you need a 3 pendulum scale, and also as well, it's just a good floodgate. Now we run these 6 cards, 3 Amorphage Wrath and 3 Amorphage Pride. Now you will never ever use these for their pendulum effects. You may use them to set your scales, however their pendulum effects are pretty useless. Neither player contribute monsters. That was pretty good when monarchs were around, except that is pretty trash these days because obviously monarchs don't exist. They're dead. And you run the 3 Pride, which is neither player takes effect damage, which God knows when that would ever be useful. However, you do need to run all 6 of these. It is a necessity for the deck because, one, they're 3 scales, so that balances out the deck. However, more importantly, they are the beat sticks of the deck. There's no point in having a deck that can lock out your opponent the whole time without being able to actually deal damage to them. You know, you can negate their spells all you want, you can negate their monster effects all you want, but if you have monsters with 0 attack, 1300 attack, you're not getting anywhere with that. So that is why you run all 6 of these. They're basically tribute fodder and beat sticks of the deck. And then what you would do is you tribute these to keep the effects of all these floodgates, and then you would pendulum summon them back in that same turn. Now, we do run 1 Majesty's Fiend because there are so many ways to get this out, so easy to get out. There's a couple of spell cards, trap cards here. I will show you later on in the deck profile towards the bottom, which will be tribute fodder for this. But also, you can pendulum summon stuff and tribute summon it. So it's really easy to get out, and it hurts a lot of decks. Again, it's basically just like a 2400 beater that is a gluttony. So yeah, I've always been a big proponent of the fact that if you can afford to run a broken card, not necessarily a broken card, but a really good card, you should be running that card, and this is one of those cases. Majesty's Fiend is a great card, and we can afford to run it, so it's a thing you might want to throw in. Now, we do run the 2 Battle Fader. Now, there's a few reasons for this. One, again, stall. The deck needs stall. The deck's strategy really is just to slowly advance your game state until at a point your opponent can no longer break your board, and you're just you're in control of the game, and the game is basically yours. So now the deck is not fast at doing this, so Battle Fader works well as a little bit of stall, and it's perfect because it ends the battle phase and it remains on the field. So what it does is it actually gives you tribute fodder for your floodgates. So that is pretty cool. And also, again, is Majesty's Fiend. You can tribute it for Majesty's Fiend and all that. So it's pretty good. 2 of these, you definitely need to run these. Alright, now we run the 3 Infection. This is absolutely necessary. You want to draw into this card. You hope to God you draw into this card as fast as possible. It extends your pendulum plays so far. Without this card, the deck can function, but it's pretty hard to pull a win. However, if you have this card, you're basically just going to tribute your monsters, pendulum summon them back right then, because what you can do is you set your scales, you tribute 1 monster for 1 of your floodgates, and then you let the other floodgate die. But while doing that, because of Amorphage Infection, you can search out the exact scale you need, and then you place it and you pendulum summon both those monsters right back onto the field. So yeah, it's pretty broken in this deck. It is the heart and soul of the deck, in my opinion. Now we run 2 Persona, only 2, not 3. 3 gets cloggy. You really don't want it that much. Once you run into the first one, a third one is just, it doesn't work. It doesn't work with the deck. And plus, you don't even run the ritual monsters, so honestly, just 2 is fine. You want to run into it, sure, but you don't want to run into it too much. Now, we run 2 Igknight Reload to speed up the deck. Works pretty well. A lot of times what I use it for is if I have 3 Pendulum Scale 5 monsters in my hand, what I would do is I would send 2 of them and then I draw 3 cards, hoping to get a Pendulum Scale 3. So that's pretty cool. That's mainly what you use it for, to try and fix bad hands and so forth. Really adds to the consistency of the deck. Now we run 1 Raigeki, obviously it is Raigeki, so obviously you're going to run that. We run 1 Upstart Hoban, adds to the consistency of the deck. I find that generic draw power cards really help this deck out, such as Igknight Reload, Upstart Hoban, and my next 2 cards, which are Pot of Desires. Yeah, so Pot of Desires, I like I said before, a big proponent of if you can run a broken card, you should run it. You can absolutely run this card in this deck. It's not a combo-oriented deck whatsoever, so if you banish, it doesn't matter what you banish, basically. So, really great card. You gotta be careful with activating 2 of them. You may deck out since the deck is a bit slow. However, it's a great card, adds the consistency of the deck. It's basically 2 free cards. I mean, honestly, let's not kid ourselves. Okay, then we run the 2 Scapegoat, pretty standard for Amorphage builds. Basically tribute fodder for your floodgates, as well as, you know, you can flip it on your opponent's turn and then the next turn you summon Majesty's Fiend. You chain it to their end phase or something like that, and then you Majesty's Fiend in your turn. Yeah, that's pretty standard, pretty self-explanatory. Now this is a little tech of mine, the Golden Apples trap card, where activate only when you take battle damage while you control no monsters. Gain life points equal to the battle damage you took and special summon 1 Malice token. Its attack and defense are equal to the amount of life points you gain by this effect. So the reason why I run this is 1, it's stall. Like I said with the battle faders, you need a little bit of stall on this deck. 2, it gives you tribute fodder. 3, it can give you a large beat stick. Really mostly used for tribute fodder, but also it's awesome to just have a beat stick on board with your floodgates. So yeah, it's a personal tech of mine. It's been working awesome. Okay, then we run the 2 Lysis. 3 is Cloggy. It's basically used to protect your things, your pendulum scales. And if you're setting up for a big pendulum summon in your standby phase, you can actually set a pendulum scale in your hand, in your pendulum zones. And what that will allow you to do is fill up your extra deck with pendulum monsters, since it will auto-destroy if you do not have anything to tribute. So that's pretty much that. Then we run the 2 Pendulum Reborn, mainly for these guys up here, Goliath and Sloth. And yeah, that's basically what that's for. You let those guys go, and then you Pendulum Reborn them back, and then it locks out your opponent from their extra deck. Now, we do not run an extra deck because there's absolutely no way you could ever make anything, because Amorphage extra deck monsters don't exist. So that is that. Now, we run into the sideboard. We run 3 Galaxy Cyclone. You know why? Because this deck auto loses to Anti-Spell Fragrance. They flip 1 Anti-Spell Fragrance, you are absolutely fucked. Yeah, you want to get rid of that as soon as possible. So I generally side these in for whatever, whatever it may be. 1 Soul Drain, Burning Abyss dies to it. So many meta decks die to it. It's pretty good, and again, you're not affected by it whatsoever. So that's cool. 2 Max C. Hand traps work really well in this deck. 2 Max C and the 2 Veiler. Kind of blanket sideboard cards. They really go well against any deck. So yeah. Then we run the 3 Chain Disappearance. This is pretty standard for all sideboards of mine. I like to run 3 Chain Disappearance for Burning Abyss because I'm so fucking tired of seeing Dante. They summon Dante, you flip this, game over for them, they scoop. Now, this is a little interesting card, Mystical Ref Panel. Basically, what this does is somebody activates, for instance, Pot of Desires. They banish 10 cards from your deck, you activate this, you draw 2 cards instead of them. So it's a free 2 cards, and your opponent banished 10 cards off their deck. Or something, I mainly set this in for Blue Eyes when they activate stuff like Cards of Confidence, Trade-In, so forth. Or even Destiny Heroes where they activate Destiny Draw, Allure, Trade-In, etc. So that is that. And then also for Blue Eyes we run the 2 Cycle Reader. So yeah, that was my Amorphage deck profile. I really tried to, just give you guys this information because Honestly, this deck is really good. It's just a lot of people don't really know how to build it, and I'm seeing a lot of stupid ratios out there with the actual Morphage monsters. Now, the Spell and Trap is a little bit more open to interpretation. You know, there's a few cards you can swap in and out, but the core is there. However, in my opinion, the monster lineup should not be changed whatsoever. I think any other ratios just does not work like this one does. Alright guys, that is me done for the day. I will see you guys next time.